Okay, welcome back to Massage Wise, and today we're going to be going over part 2 of my massage tips video series, where we pick up where we left off last time and further give you more information and hopefully improve the quality of care you're getting when you're getting massage therapy and educate you further on how to go through this process with less stress. Also, a reminder that the YouTube algorithm is ever the mythical beast that wants to come and hunt us down. So if you like what you have seen so far, like, comment, subscribe, and give us a thumbs up, and share our video with friends that you think could benefit from them. This way, we avoid being captured by the YouTube algorithm mythical beast. Okay, so tip for today is use proper manners. And I understand how simple that is, but I also have the experience of seeing a lot of not only my fellow therapists, but clients just come into my room and act as if we're not providing a service for a fee, but that we're just outright, we're their slaves. And I understand completely that this is not everybody, but I'm saying this just for the fact that I need to make sure that this is for everybody. Using proper manners gets you places you don't realize you could go. And I'll give you a list of a few of those things just for an example. Here's the biggest one. Okay, your mama said, please and thank you get you everywhere. Basic manners when you are working with a therapist could mean the difference between being a little late and starting or having to completely reschedule your appointment. I've had clients that are perpetually late. They make the appointment. The spa calls and reminds them of the appointment, and they're still 5 to 10 minutes late, which means that they don't get the 60 minutes that they paid for because they're late. Now, a couple of things that I'll talk about before I finish that analogy is what I'm talking about. For one, if you are a smoker, I'm not telling you to quit, but it might be in your benefit in this instance, but do not smoke within an hour of going to see a massage therapist, because you have to think of it from the therapist's point of view. And you have to consider whether or not you're going to have a therapist that is an asthmatic like myself, where if you come in and you had just lit up a cigarette and smoked a cigarette before you came in, all of that cigarette smoke is going to make my lungs burn the whole time. And so what's going to happen is, yeah, I'll work on you, but as soon as we're done, I'm going to go to the front and say, don't ever put that client on my list again. The same thing with gym bodies. I know that there is the modus operandi of you go and you work your muscles really, really hard, and then you get massage therapy to bounce back quickly. A quick rinse off at the gym typically fixes it. But if you come in stinking, I won't kick you out because I'm used to it. But don't be surprised when you smell rather potently of essential oils to the effect of almost being able to taste it. We have to consider the person that's coming after you. And so if you bring in a foul odor, in one case, a fellow therapist of mine had a guy come in and he had just got done eating a lot of curry. And the fragrance of curry on this particular client was so thick that they had to switch rooms for her for the rest of her clients. She had another 4 clients that day, and they were not going to force those clients to smell curry. They didn't pay for curry. They're not going to be forced to that. So, I mean, when you look at this, it doesn't sound like it causes a big stir, but it can. If you have a strong enough aroma, you're in a tiny room, sometimes very much less than 10 by 10, maybe 10 by 12 considering the length of the table. And if anything, you have air conditioning going in, but you never have a fan. So if you come in and you smell like cigarettes, you may leave the room smelling like a house where smokers live. If you're a gym body and you come in super stinking, you may leave that therapist's room stinking so that the spa has to aerate the room and move that therapist to another room, or they may not be able to, and clients after you would complain due to the smell, and the therapist's, just going to get harped on because what are they going to do? It's not like they can just sit there and spray Febreze all over everything, because you have less than 5 minutes in between clients in some spas. And there's not much you can do in 5 minutes without a lot of those things being wet, especially if you're going to try the Febreze trick. It may work or it may not work, but you're still going to have wet linens for the next client. And communicating with your therapist. I have already stated in the first video, keep it short, keep it brief, keep it to the point. But also, you want to make sure you're conveying information. And if you've had a bad day, sometimes being terse can be excused, especially if the therapist knows you're having a bad day. But if you're perpetually having a bad day, you have to remember that these people are not therapists, and they're getting paid to do massage therapy work. They're not being paid to deal with your bad attitude. And a reflection of who you are is how you treat people. And if you want to be perceived as a good person, you have to put that extra little thought into your brain of, this person is giving me a service. They are not a slave. They are, providing a vital service. Do I want to treat the person who's going to have contact with 90% of my body? Do I want this contact with this person to be negative? Just saying in that instance. And cussing. Yes, we all knew we were going to get here somehow. I had clients that were cussers. Oh, they cussed up a blue streak. I had some former soldiers that had a difficult time getting on my table. One cussed so loudly that the therapist in the room adjacent to us stopped her massage, opened her door, and when I was coming out of it was asking, is he okay? You may want to make sure that if you know you're a cusser when it comes to being uncomfortable or, shock or whatever, you want to make sure that therapist knows that you are not cussing at them or that is your response. It's kind of like knowing the difference between he's going to say it because he's in pain versus he's cussing at me. And in that instance, I'm one of those therapists where you can cuss a blue streak up in front of me. I don't care. My only rule is you don't use the Lord's name in vain in front of me. It's a simple rule. Nobody says, that stuff in pain all that often from my example, but, it's part of also having boundaries. If you go to a massage therapist and they know perpetually you do not want your skull worked on because you don't want oils in your hair or whatever, maintaining respect for boundaries is good. Don't ask for what you know that is not legally askable. Even like other female therapists and a male therapist is like, what do you do when they ask if you will work on their genitals? I tell them the truth. That's not my certification. I'm not certified to work on that area. I don't do tantric. So if I'm not certified and I don't have the training, I don't handle that area. And that's the legal, easy way to do that. If they ask once or twice, I can push it off. But if it's a persistent thing, I'm going to the front and saying, never give this client to me ever again. So to finish the example from earlier, we have the client that is perpetually late. My gosh, it got dark. Okay, it's a lot better. We have the client that's perpetually late, showing up late, and what happens? Well, for those in front of the register, they have to pretty much look at the schedule. So they're going to look at the schedule, and they're going to see what they can do. Now, most spas will inquire with the therapist first. Let's say that the therapist has, an hour free, so they have some time to give you the full time that you paid for. This doesn't always happen, but sometimes this can happen. If you have built a respectful relationship with this therapist, then when they come to that therapist and say, okay, this client's just showed up, but you have an extra hour after this client, would you be open to giving this client their full time? A good spa will do that because what you're trying to do is build a reputation. When you have a client that's perpetually late, in the beginning, the therapist may be open to being able to do it. But with some spas, therapists will get popular, or they'll have that one therapist that they can never keep booked. And it's like those clients that are perpetually late keep on getting pushed onto that particular therapist because that particular therapist always has time. But if you are running late, let's say once in a blue moon you're running late, and this just so happens to be on a day where the therapist can accommodate you and give you your full time, a respectful relationship with the therapist is more inclined. If you're assigned to a therapist and there is no real therapeutic relationship, but you keep going back to them and you keep treating them horribly and you don't communicate, and it's sort of like you expect them to read your mind and whatnot, when that situation comes and they ask that therapist, are you willing to accommodate this person? That therapist is going to say no. There's no reason, there's no giddy up to do it. So, I mean, unless in that instance, there's only one way that situation gets fixed. Which leads into our next subject, tipping. So there's two schools of thought in school on tips. But I'm going to give you the real world expectation, and that is therapists tend to like tips. Tips sometimes are the difference between I'll make time for you and I won't make time for you. I know one therapist I worked with in the past where this client treated her like, but she got a $40 tip every time this person came in. And so this person would make time for this client. The tip was worth it. It was okay, I'm getting paid enough to deal with this behavior. Typically, I kind of feel tips, when I do the math in my head, kind of gauge how good of a therapist I am. Because it's typically 10, 20, 30% in my regard, unless you are exceptional. So 10% of the total cost of the spa visit. So I think the easiest way is to be like, it's $100 an hour. You get a $10 tip, you're good. You get a $20 tip, you're nice. Get a $30 tip, holy jeez, you are good. And you're probably booked very often. Tips, there's two ways to do tips, okay? Many of the spas that I've been in have this where they have the tip envelope in the therapy room. So if you got cash on you, which most therapists like, you just put the money in the envelope and you leave it like on the table with your name on it and their name on it. That's the easiest way to do it. It's the most direct way to do it, and the front desk doesn't have to know about it. The other way is when you go to pay your bill, they'll ask, do you want to leave your therapist a tip? At that point, if you left cash in the back, just say no. Many of the therapists that I work with are very quiet about it. Unless there's a client that's a real just level 10 DEFCON monster, but they pay super good. So, I mean, if they can't work on that client and they have to shuffle them around to another therapist, this particular therapist would have spread word. Believe me, they would have spread word about the client that's really mean but pays well. And so you have therapists that are going to consider, okay, is it worth dealing with this person to get this tip? If you are a really, really good therapist friend as far as communication and being good and mannerful, if you're a good client and they can't get to you because they're sick, which you're in a vocation where you're literally touching dozens of people per day for a therapeutic purpose. During cold season, you will run into somebody that comes to the spa and they're like, oh, everybody in the house is sick, but I haven't gotten sick yet. They don't realize they're a carrier, and then they may infect that therapist with their cold, meaning, they got the cold the morning before, and by the next morning they're, up chugging in the toilet or something. So they may have to move you around if you still want your appointment. So if you're a really good client, most therapists that work in a facility will talk positively about you. If you're a horrible client, guaranteed every therapist will be talking about you before the end of the day. That therapist is going to get done with you and be like, you guys will not believe the person I just got done working on. So that's all I got for you for this video. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that thumbs up and check out our videos on MassageWise. The algorithm, hopefully, will have been kept at bay by those helpful actions. And if you have a question or a comment, subscribe below and leave a comment, and I will get to it. Enjoy the rest of your day.